Who are you? So stupid. Take a breath and answer me. Just because you are shaking and have an attitude, it doesn't impress me. Don't be smart with me. Straighten up your attitude. People are watching you today. Do you still live with your mother?
Congressman, thank you for being on the program again. We're talking about Tulsi Gabbard. We're talking about the deep state. We're talking about the Russiagate collusion and also the election security in this country. I wanted to start off the top here with the state of Pennsylvania and this case of election switching vote machines. This happened with a Supreme Court case in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure if it's your district or not, but this made a lot of news. And Tulsi Gabbard then yesterday comes through and says, as Director of National Intelligence, these electronic voting machines are not secure, and we have evidence of them switching votes and affecting the outcomes of elections. What should happen with electronic voting in the country?
We should get rid of electronic voting in the country. We can count paper ballots. Matter of fact, in Pennsylvania, before electronic voting machines were available, we either did it by paper or we had this old archaic machine that you would wheel in and you would pull these levers and you would pull a big handle and it cast your vote, and everybody knew by 10 o'clock at night who won the race. And that seemed to be obvious and acceptable. But remember, the advent of electronic voting machines really didn't come into force until Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump. And there had to be some other explanation other than Donald Trump beat her. So it had to be there were voting irregularities. And now all we have is voting irregularities where you have decremented votes, you have partial votes. We can't find out from California for 2 or 3 or weeks or a month who won the election. It is absurd. We're the only westernized country that does this stuff. And we all know that we could vote with our identification on one day unless you needed an absentee ballot that you requested and go back to safe, secure elections that people actually trusted.
Is there any proposition to change the way that Pennsylvania votes? I mean, is there anything that is on the table right now? This is obviously something that's got to be near and dear to you.
Well, yeah, of course. As one of the people that was derided for even suggesting on behalf of my constituents that anything untoward happened in any of these elections. But look, I'm in Pennsylvania. Josh Shapiro is our governor. And guess who profits from questionable voting in Pennsylvania? Keep in mind, Josh Shapiro won his race for Attorney General there were 3 row officers in Pennsylvania during the Trump election. Josh Shapiro won. The 2 other Republican candidates, almost virtually unknown, beat Democratic incumbents during the same election, but somehow Josh Shapiro won, and President Trump, who went to bed that night thinking he had won, got up in the morning and had lost. So I don't suspect there's going to be any change in Pennsylvania because Josh Shapiro likes things just the way they are.
Do you think that there should be prosecutions for election fraud if uncovered in 2020? I think that this is something that a lot of the American public hasn't gotten over, that somehow 20 million Democrat voters that voted in 2020 just disappeared in the election before and after. And that just seems a little too on the nose for us.
Yeah, and of course the people with the drop boxes and being able to track the location of the mules with their cell phones, none of that's, the FBI has that information, never investigated it, never went further. I'm listening to the case that you're making regarding Crossfire Hurricane, and me and every other American that's watching you right now, Benny, is wondering the same thing. When is someone going to jail?
Yes. Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up because, again, we go back to the Durham report here. The Durham report just says there was never any predicate to ever open this investigation. So anybody who ever worked on this is clearly breaking the law because they're just seeking out a totally and completely prejudiced case against President Trump. There was never any evidence, never any direct evidence, and they were paying a fortune to some of the shadiest and dirtiest people that were actual Russian agents in order to try and get evidence. They ended up getting the PP dossier. I mean, isn't that prima facie criminal? Isn't that on its, again, where are the arrests?
Of course it's prima facie criminal. Look, this is actually worse than the Soviet Union, where it is often said, you show me the person and I'll show you the crime. In this case, you show me the person and we'll manufacture the crime. We, the government, will manufacture the crime. Whoever was manufacturing deserves to be in trial in criminal court right now.
Yeah. So you're on the Oversight and Accountability Committee. You have quite a buffet before you of corruption from the federal government. Is there any motion here on Crossfire or Hurricane? Can we expect anything on this front? Obviously, these are damning documents, but it seems like there's sort of been a fire hydrant of federal corruption that's being exposed. And I don't want to lose this, because what they ended up doing is it's almost like rigging an election against Trump. Trump won in 2016, but they rigged his entire administration away from him, right? He was kneecapped by this.
Right. Yeah.
And if you speak to anybody.
Yeah, he was unable to realize his full potential as president as a result of these nefarious efforts. And I think as time goes on and more of this information comes out, look, like you said, we have a smorgasbord of riches. We have the blessing of riches of horrible things, unfortunately. But I think that Chairman Comer, as more and more of this information comes out, we're going to have to take a stronger look at it. Now, we also want to coordinate with the Department of Justice because of this blessing of riches of nefarious activity. You know, we only have so much bandwidth, each one of us. And if they're doing it, maybe we don't need to, or maybe we need to buttress them with testimony that they otherwise aren't getting or something like that. But I think we need to coordinate so that we hit all these nefarious activities and provide the best and greatest volume of transparency and accountability for the American people.
Yeah. Where would you like to see that start, given that you're a powerful member of the Oversight and Accountability? Where would you like to start? I mean, what's a passion project for you to go after? Obviously we've been sort of making the point that if you don't have secure elections in this country, you have nothing, and you can't have a functional republic without them.
Yeah, I think this is one of the highest profile things that either the Department of Justice or the oversight committees in the House and Senate need to take on, because elections are how we resolve our disputes and disagreements in America. And if you can't believe in them, if you can't trust them, and it's one thing if the Russians, the Chinese, or the North Koreans or Iranians are trying to manipulate them. It's wholly another thing when our intelligence agencies and our law enforcement agencies are involved. So I think that's top tier. But I don't want to stop there. Look, I think we've got to look at a lot of things like the J6 operation and what the federal involvement was. We need to look at the pipe bomber incident there, where it sure appears that the federal government or some federal agencies know who the pipe bomber was, but don't want to let us know. I mean, and quite honestly, I think we do have to go back and look more deeply into Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, security risk and being captured by the Communist Party of China and what those security risks were. So, look, we've got a full plate. We could also be looking into what the federal government knows about UAP and the origins of COVID, what the security risks there. I mean, a lot of this stuff is classified, and the American people need to be able to see it so that they know whether they can trust their government or not, and who knew what when and whether they said about it.
That's very interesting, a point that you just brought up. And if you don't mind me going back, because you piqued my interest here. One, you said we need to look into potential intelligence operations from within, not from without, for election rigging. This sort of corresponds with the head of CISA, who was fired and now is being called to be federally investigated, who claimed that 2020 was the most secure election in American history.
Right.
This guy just got an executive order signed against him, Donald Trump demanding his investigation. Is that your suspicion? Do you have evidence that the hacking of the 2020 election may have been coming from inside of the House, inside our intel agencies?
Well, I don't have any evidence, and I don't want to pretend that I do here, but in the way I've seen everything come and shake out from that election, there has never been a full investigation. There have never been full court proceedings. Most of the court action was thrown out before there was never, as far as I know, any evidentiary consideration of the evidence itself. So I think we need to know for sure what CISA, what the intelligence agencies knew about it, if anything, what they were saying about it, what foreign actors were doing or not doing, or what's being ascribed to foreign activities. Yeah, we absolutely need to know all of that. And now is absolutely the time, with President Trump in office, Ratcliffe over at CIA, Patel and Bondi over at the FBI and Justice. Yeah, we need to get to the bottom of all of it and know what they did in the past, what those agencies did in the past.
Congressman, one final point that you just brought up in your explanation of what you want to investigate is the J6 pipe bomber, saying that you just have to assume that the feds know who the pipe bomber is and that they're hiding it from you. Now, why the hell would that be?
Well, it seems like the feds have we've seen the tapes with the frame rate changed. We've seen the tapes with the face blurred out. Like, some of us have seen that stuff. Why would that be the case? Why would frame rate change? Why would the cell phone data for that specific place and location be lost? The phone companies have this data, and there's more than one phone company. Like, it's just all too coincidental. And look, it's no different really than the Jeffrey Epstein case. We don't believe that Jeffrey Epstein hung himself. He had broken bones in his neck, and that's not how you get broken bones in a prison, where suddenly the cameras were turned off and the guards, went for a sandwich break. Like, nobody believes this stuff, right? None of us believe it.
So you bring up really great points here. We should do a show together, because I think we agree on a lot of these things. So yeah, just too many coincidences. All right, just real fast follow-ups here. What does it say if the feds are hiding the identity and protecting the one guy who was a terrorist on January 6th? What does that say?
Well,
because I agree with you, Congressman. There is one terrorist who deserves terrorism charges on January 6th. It's the pipe bomber. Okay? Right. The so-called pipe bomber.
Yeah, and if that was an operation sanctioned, carried out by any of the federal agencies, clandestine or otherwise, obviously that's going to have to be rooted out. Root and branch going to have to be torn out, but somebody is going to have to be held accountable, because I can't imagine that whether it was an op or not, that some wayward agent just took it upon him or herself to do that of their own accord. Somebody issued those orders, and the American people need to know who that is, and then there needs to be accountability for that. And then if there has been a cover-up, we need to know who's been operating that cover-up as well.
Man. So much, it's so dirty, it's so filthy. You brought up Epstein, which is sort of the magic word, right, to get people very upset online. Final question for you: what's your game theory? This for us, sources that we have at the FBI telling us that they have a large amount of evidence that hasn't been released to the public, and that they're doing their best to try and go through it and release it. What's your take on this entire saga? Because it does seem like there is a opportunity for people to lose faith, right? That they're getting full transparency. And more importantly, what is constantly being asked by our show is, why would you protect pederasts? That doesn't make any sense. If there's one people to let them burn in hell, it's the pederasts, right? Out with it, right? And then handcuffs for the people that were involved. But
yeah, I don't think anybody is doing their best to quickly get the information completely out. I think everybody's doing their best to make sure the information isn't out. And look, maybe there are national security implications. And as a guy who's worked in that arena a little bit, I certainly can understand that. Then tell the American people what was so important, what was so sensitive, that it was worth keeping a pedophile and a pedophile operation on the books for years at end, allowing the abuse of minors around the globe to be involved. Tell us what was so important to protect. Was it nuclear war with some country? Was it chemical warfare inside? What was it that we are now protecting? Look, we can be understanding if the risk was worth the cost. I say that kind of tongue in cheek, because these are children, and I really can't be understanding. But at least try to make it. To work the equation out for the American people.
Yeah, we've done extensive research on this program. We've put up the FBI documents saying Epstein's intel. He works for us. Let him off the hook when they had him in a clear-cut case in Palm Beach.
Right.
Like you do owe us an explanation.
Yeah.
Like, why did you allow this operation to continue? They owe us the explanation. That doesn't make any sense. Well, we thank you for it's a breath of fresh air. It's why you got to follow Scott Perry. It's a breath of fresh air. Like, have you ever heard a member of Congress speak like this? Like, who just like comes out and just kind of says it with both barrels? This is like Pennsylvania wrestler stock here, man. I know it. Pennsylvania hunting and wrestler stock. I know it when I see it. Am I right, sir? Yeah.
Wrestling capital of the world, right here, Pennsylvania. You got it.
That's right. Pennsylvania hunters and wrestlers. They are built different, and they don't got any time for bullshit. And we thank you so very much, Congressman, for your clarity on this. We hope that if you find anything, that you'll come back as soon as possible. You always have a warm audience here to listen. And thank you, sir. 141,000 followers on X. You are ticking up, Congressman. Ooh, baby.
Thanks for the help. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Go in there and follow. Go in there and follow our friend, Congressman.
God bless you. Appreciate you having me on.
God bless you.